Welcome to today's Jerusalem Press Club briefing, focusing on the new Israeli government to be sworn in tomorrow. I'm Tali Deckel, Vice President of JPC. Much has been said about the incoming coalition and how its policies will impact the nation and global attitudes towards the Jewish state. Here at the club, we will do our best to bring the most relevant voices to address these issues. Today, we're honored to host a member of Knesset making headlines in the Israeli press due to his role in the current legislation being pushed and components of the coalition agreements. Knesset member Simcha Rothman from the religious Zionist Party founded the Movement for Governability and Democracy in 2013 and is the author of the High Court Political Party. A lawyer by trade, MK Rothman was a member of the Judicial Selection Committee in the last parliament. MK Rothman, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you've had a very long night at the Knesset plenum and you're about to embark on yet another, so we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's just begin with a brief introduction about your expectations and goals for this period in Israeli politics before we go into the Q&A.
Okay. So nice. Some of you I think I met once, but some of you didn't. So hello everyone. I will say that I think this government has a chance to reform the state of Israel in a way that will be both more democratic and both more Jewish. And of course, I talked about the more democratic part first because of my role on the, I'm going to be Be'ezrat Hashem, I'm going to be the head of the Constitution Committee, and I will be in charge of the legislation concerning the judicial system, which in Israel is a big problem. It's a big problem of balance of powers. Basically, there are no checks and balances of the power of the court in Israel. Just recently today, a Supreme Court justice issued, while being in conflict of interest by himself, issued a decision that a basic law might be unconstitutional. Now, it's kind of a judicial conundrum because so Israel does not have a constitution, and the court for many years claimed that the basic laws are the constitution, and now he says that basic law is unconstitutional based on what? A big mess, and we need to make things right on this issue. And for many years, and the court, the public trust in the court in Israel has plummeted from 90% in the 80s and the 90s to less than 50%. Now it's about 40% in Israel, which is a terrible number when you talk about public trust in court. We have a big mission ahead of us with reforming the justice system in many ways, and we introduced it before the elections, very a detailed way. I think it's the only issue that all parties are basically on the same page, almost to the word, and there are small differences, but we can definitely say that 64 seats in the Knesset are for the reforms, and we can even say that some people that today are in the opposition openly and loudly supported parts of those reforms. So in the past, so they might object now because of the political position that has changed. But if you count the heads of the people that, for example, we're talking about the override clause. Override clause was signed by Lieberman's party, signed by members of Tikva Hadasha, voted on by members of Tikva Hadasha in the last Knesset, also in the Machaneh Mamlechti. So it's not a fringe decision or fringe legislation. It's mainstream in Israel, and if you put political position aside, it's really a grassroots movement to reform the courts. So that's a major issue. And of course, the two other major issues is restoring governability in Israel, because we know what's happened in the mixed cities. We know what happened during Shomer HaChomot. We know what happened in the Negev, in the Galil, We know that Israel has a big problem with rising numbers of murders, especially in the Arab society, which are not concerning any national issues. It's violence and zero governability that hurts first and foremost the Arab societies. They basically ask us to try to reform the police, to reform and restore security to the Arab cities, to the mixed cities, and to the state of Israel. So that's a major concern for the next government. And the third is really about the Jewish attributes of the state that for many, many years were under attack. It's for me as a national from the religious Zionist party that and for people from the Likud who are very connected to their Jewish identity. I think it's a shame that in country like Israel, you can go, a student can be in the school for a year without reading the Bible. It's not something that's acceptable to me. Sadly, for many years, it became the situation in the education system in Israel. It's not about the religious education system. It's the general connection of the Jewish state to the Jewish people and the Jewish history. That's inner issues. And of course, when you talk about foreign relations, we have the Abraham Accords to continue. We need to continue the ongoing fight against terror, domestic and international. And but that's something that is supposed to be under agreement with most Knesset members, left and right.
Okay, so thank you very much. The goals are very clear, and you've touched on a lot of issues, which we have questions specifically about almost every one of them. So maybe we can expand a little on each of them. And congratulations on your upcoming appointment. Let's go from the end. There's been mass public outcry over some of the legislation being voted on. And it's no longer just isolated to the not Bibi camp or members of the elite. Like when I say the elite, I'm talking about the recent pilots petition or even the extensive media coverage of the legislation itself, but it's also coming from the bottom up. We can see this widely on social media. People are genuinely afraid that LGBTQ rights will be reverted. Municipalities have already announced they'll ignore education directives. Doctors are dismissing an intervention in health treatment policy that's come up. Is there something that's being lost in translation?
Yes.
And will this government be turning a blind eye to these fears that are genuinely coming from the public?
Okay, so some of these fears, I would say most or all of these fears are coming from a fear-mongering opposition, which has nothing to do with reality. I would say it very clear. There is no legislation. I know you read the news, but each and every one of you knows that sometimes, and I would say gently, you can read news about what's happening in the US or in the UK or in any other country, and it will be almost completely fake news that came into a big mess out of nothing. There is no plan and there is no will to discriminate against the LGBTQ community or any other community in Israel. There is no legislation that is planned to do a discrimination against the LGBTQ community and any other community in Israel. What there is, and that one, and I will have to get to the details. Sorry for the details because the devil is in the details. But I want to give you an example of two stories, a story and a counter story that happened in Israel that for me, as a person who believes in human rights and in freedom, in the freedom, for me are terrible, okay? One case is that an Arab Bedfus printing house, was getting an order in Al-Fahim, from an Arab city, got an order from a client asking him to print an invitation for going on the Temple Mount as Jews. Now, of course, it's against his religion as an Arab. He sees it as a problem with his religion. He was made to print it, and because he didn't agree to print it, he was fined by the court. One story. A second story, a newspaper was asked to publish an ad that was really hurtful for the people that are reading the newspaper. Out of their viewpoint, and the newspaper said, I don't want, it's against my beliefs to publish this and this ad. And he was forced to do it by the court. I think that a free country does not make anyone to go against his conscience, and especially freedom of religion has a very important role in democracy, in the history of democracy around the world, especially against his religion. And sadly, the courts in Israel use the anti-discrimination law that's supposed to prevent discrimination against people or groups to coerce people to doing actions that are against their beliefs. No one will be allowed to say, I'm refusing to give service to you because you are gay. That's unacceptable. But if I go to an Arab seller and he tells me, I won't give you service because you are a Jew, it's unacceptable. If he tells me I can't touch alcohol because I'm Muslim, and I won't pick up the bottle and give it to you. If you want, take it yourself from the shelf. You can't make me give it to you because of my religion. I think it's a fair enough reason not to be called discriminating against Jews, even though I need it because I am Jew buying wine for Kiddush. It's not acceptable to make people go against their religious belief just because you can color it as an anti-discrimination law. That's what the law is aimed at. There are a few sad cases. By the way, most of them have nothing to do with the LGBTQ community. Some of them are, but it's really not the issue. The examples that I gave are real examples from real world, have nothing to do with LGBTQ community. And there might be an implication on any group, on any action you might ask from someone can be a problem, but that's not the cases that we are talking about. That's not the cases that happened, sadly, in Israel. And in the US, when there was cases like that, the Supreme Court said, yes, freedom of religion triumphed your will to get your service from this specific guy on this specific issue by this specific person. And that was the ruling by the Supreme Court in the US. That's what we're talking about. All the rest that you have heard, sadly, I say, fake news, political campaign that trying to make an uproar and fear-mongering because the right is in power. And I have to say one more thing concerning the fear of hurting LGBTQ rights. For the past year and a half, we had a chairman of a committee in the Knesset who said openly, and I have to say I am sad that I have to quote him, but you won't believe me if I won't quote him. He said, over my dead body, basically, there will be legislation concerning those perverts. His words. He said it about the LGBTQ community. He was elected by the votes of LGBTQ Knesset members, and no one talked about it. There were basically zero legislation concerning LGBTQ community in the first coalition that did not have ultra-Orthodox people in it in years. There was zero legislation concerning the LGBTQ community, and no one shouted, no one went on demonstration, no one went on demonstration against him. We're in a political campaign, and I think this, and probably, I don't know yet the position, but probably we will have, it's a good chance that we will have the first gay speaker in the Knesset, in this coalition, first ever gay speaker of the Knesset in Israel, and in this coalition, having ultra-Orthodox people and religious and that's the other jobs that that might go to Amir Ohana is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are not discriminating against gays. We are not ashamed of gays. It's really lie upon lie upon lie. And that's
the point is clear. We do have a lot of questions coming in, so I apologize for cutting you off. No, that's fine.
It was important to make this question because to make this answer, because the lies are terrible and people are really genuinely afraid because of those lies, and they shouldn't be. It's really lie upon lie upon lie.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, we just want to touch on the override clause because there are a few different questions coming in over it. Are you determined to pass it at 61 votes, or would you be willing to compromise and go for 70?
I think that the situation that we have today in Israel, again, just today, a Supreme Court judge sitting in a conflict of interest, canceling a basic law, not canceling yet because he wants to have a panel decision, but the fact that the Supreme Court says he can cancel basic laws is basically breaking the rules of the game. We have no rules of the game in Israel. So, of course, if a single judge, single-handedly, sitting in a case he never should have sit in because he's in a conflict of interest, cancel basic law, I really don't think we need to put any restraints on the Knesset reacting to this action. If we will have, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we will have a limit on the way that the court can cancel laws, we might then think about what are the proper ways to override it. But in the situation today, I don't see any reason why a single judge or 2 out of 3 judges should have more power than 61 seats in the Knesset. A very important point to make in this. We are not like the US. We don't have a constitution, that's one thing. A second thing is, not all judges sit on all cases. It's not that we have 15 judges deciding this issue. It can be a random or not random, one single person decision says, in this law, I will have 3 judges that I know that they're objecting to this law. They will vote against it. It will be 2 against 1. And then we say, oh, the court has spoken. It's unconstitutional. Let's have a more than 61 decision. I think that's outrageous when you look on it from a democratic point of view. When we will have a constitution or a more robust way of basic laws and judicial review based on this robust system of basic laws, we can talk about other options. But when we have today, you can pass a basic law, the basic law that the court is canceling laws because of it has passed in the Knesset in 31 votes. So to tell the Knesset you need more than 61 to override the decision based on a law that was passed with 31 votes does not make any sense in the Israeli system.
Okay, moving on to security and the ability to govern, because that's also something that you mentioned at the beginning of our talk. We have a few different questions, so I'll try to combine them together. But most of them point to the fact that Prime Minister Netanyahu had a long time to make policy changes, whether we're talking about the evacuation of illegal Bedouin encampments such as Khan al-Ahmar, whether we're talking about returning the sense of security to the streets within the Green Line when it comes to mixed cities. All of these things happened or didn't happen under right-wing governments. So what is different this time around? What is going to enable you to act differently? And I'm adding 2 more questions on to this question. One is that foreign policy considerations haven't changed. The government still needs to take these things into consideration when making its decisions. And 2, we've been hearing also a lot of suggestions from within the military echelon, whether it was General Kochavi expressing his not disappointment, but warning against changing the authority given to us in the West Bank, and even the latest suggestion by the military intelligence to perhaps invent its own Iran deal? Like there are so many different components here. How is this going to affect the way this government is able to make security-related decisions both inside and outside the Green Line?
Okay, so first, the international pressures and foreign relations of the State of Israel is always changing in some way, but of course there are considerations that every government needs to take into account. I don't think that Israel should accept international consideration allowing what was discovered was discovered and had a smoking gun just a week and a half ago, I think, about the intervention of the European Union in Area C buildings and basically helping the Palestinian Authority to take over illegally, to take over land. So the international interference in Judea and Samaria, I think the major thing that the State of Israel should say to those intervening countries is your intervention did not bring peace to the Middle East. What happened in the Middle East and the peace, the Abraham Accords as an example, that happened in the Middle East became despite of your efforts to help, and Israel can really bring peace to the area if it left alone in this matter without the intervention, the foreign intervention by the EU or other countries. Peace comes from the bottom up. That's my belief. I think that if we will, at the second the Palestinian Authority and the other players in the area will understand, for example, that paying for terrorists to keep what it's called pay for slay. If you kill more Jews, you get more money. If you're an Israeli creating a terror attack, you're getting more money. All this and the support and the money to those payments is coming from the EU, is coming from other countries. If the world will say this is unacceptable, I think terror will go down and peace will come. And I think that the government and what will be a difference, what is going to change in this government is this government is 100% on the same page on those issues. You don't have people that trying to push forward two-state solution that is not state and it's not solution. It's creating a failed state of terror in Judea and Samaria and in other areas that are controlled by the Palestinian Authority.
Does that mean that you plan to push sovereignty in these areas?
I think that sovereignty needs to be on the table. The timing, of course, should be very well considered because of the reason that you said. But we definitely need to get to normalize the situation in Judea and Samaria. That's today, and that is part of the reason why in this government we have a separate minister under the Minister of Defense that's supposed to make sure that the civilians living in Judea and Samaria will not be treated like they are under a military regime. It's strange to understand that. But in Judea and Samaria, there are almost no Arabs living under Israeli civilian management. But there are many, many Jews, Israelis, citizens that living and they're getting their water, they're getting the sewage, they're getting their electricity, they're getting their transportation from officers in the army. There is no need for that. The international law has nothing to do with it, and it's some trying to make the situation more complicated than it should be.
Okay, I have one question coming in about some of your other coalition partners. A paper for one of the ultra-Orthodox parties called your remarks about amending anti-discrimination laws in Israel earlier this week libelous to Judaism worldwide. Do you have a response to this?
Again, I think that many people who did not, who some people, sadly, even on the coalition side, but most of them did not fall through it, fell into the chain of lies that was published. I have to say, if I would read the quotes, the lies that they put in my mouth, that quoted, quote unquote, quoted from me, if I would read them, I would disagree also. I would think are shameful. The lies and fake news, and anyone who understands the issue and read what I said actually, and not what was misquoted, and read the legislation, understood it, and I'm talking about everyone, including people from the left. Not everyone has to agree with me, but no one in his right mind can say that my plan is to discriminate against gays or other groups of society. That's not the case. That's not the issue. And if you read the lies and you believe in them, yes, it's a disgrace to Judaism.
Okay, so we're clear that there are some things that are true and there's some things that aren't. What is true and that we do know is that you have two members of the coalition that have been convicted or have a rap sheet, Itamar Ben-Gvir, of course, and Aryeh Deri, who are both going to be receiving very senior positions in this government. Putting aside all the political considerations, are these the leaders that our children should be striving to emulate when they see that these are the leaders of our country? Is there no ethical dilemma here that we should be considering as a leadership, or that you should be considering as the leadership?
I would divide the issues to two questions, or two major aspects. One of them is that if and Itamar Ben-Gvir, I think, is a very good example to it. If you have a problem with a political and biased justice system that trying to hunt you down, I think Ben-Gvir is the champion. In Israel, when you are indicted, the chances of you getting convicted in Israel are 98%, 99%. Very high conviction rate. Itamar Ben-Gvir, I think, is the most, it was acquitted from 50 or something indictments. He was indicted time and again on false reasons, and he was acquitted, and the court said he is innocent. Now, when you try so hard to put something on someone, sometimes he will be indicted. But it wasn't. It was from what I see, Itamar Ben-Gvir was a political battle that was acting, and to change this is one of the reasons we need to change the justice system, which is very politicized and trying to put this stain on people because of political reasons. Of course, Aryeh Deri voters believe that's the case also with him. I have to say, Itamar Ben-Gvir cases I checked by myself, so I can tell it from my check. I didn't check Aryeh Deri cases. They're definitely not the ones from the past. But the second aspect that I think is even more important, that though both of those issues show that the public in Israel, sadly, do not trust the justice system. Now, one solution is to say, oh, the public is immoral, the public is unethical, the public is wrong. But to say, if 64 seats in the Knesset, and even more, and the other side, of course, will take Deri if it will give him the power, don't see the ruling of the court as putting an ethical stain on a person, it means that the Supreme Court and the court system and the justice system has lost the public trust and has lost the legitimacy to stay and act the same way they're doing today. And that's what I want to change. I want to have a justice system that I trust that when they indict someone and when they convict someone, it's really an ethical stain and really a problem to appoint him. Sadly, today I trust Aryeh Deri and Itamar Ben-Gvir morals and ethics more than many of the judges and the prosecutors in Israel. And it's very sad. I don't want to be in this position. I want to reform the system and restore the public trust to that. But I'm not alone. 64 seats in the Knesset are with me on that. And that's sad. I believe it's a sad day for the justice system in Israel. But it's a justice system, not the political system.
I've just been told that we have time for one or two final questions. So I will ask you about the chances of survival for this current government. The past one didn't make it past a single year. Your coalition, though no longer a narrow coalition, still has between 4 to 6 parties with different opinions about different subjects. Military service is one of them, for instance. Do you think that we'll see elections before the 4-year term is up?
No, I think this government has the chance. It of course depends on everyone in the coalition and the way we will act together and with cooperation. I think this government has a chance of staying for 4 years, even more. According to the law, it's supposed to be almost 5, because the differences between different parties in the coalition are not so big. We're very, I can say on many issues, we're on the same page. There are differences, there are different parties, but we're on many issues, and the most important issues, we are on the same page. And I just want to say, I read the questions that Guy wrote, and I think that's a good question. I will answer it in a sentence. Exactly what I said is that if someone boycotts you have the right to boycott him back. You have the right to sanction him. That's 100% legitimate. And I don't want to make Ben & Jerry's sell ice cream to me. But I want, as a country, if someone boycotts me, that I will take my business and my friend's business from this company. And that's the kind of sanction. I would not coerce Ben & Jerry's to sell me ice cream. I would make them with the financial and the other power that I have in me, for the country. I would make them pay for financially for this decision, because I will take the business of the state of Israel and the rest of my friends around the world who don't agree. And I urge, and what I see today, that banks and other entities say, we would not allow discrimination. That's exactly what I wanted. That's exactly what I said. I said that any business that will discriminate, I said it in the first interviews. That's why I say it's all lies. I said any business that will say I don't accept gays, I would go and riot against it, and I would go and boycott him for that, because I think it's morally wrong. But of course, that does not gives me the right to make Ben & Jerry's sell me ice cream that they don't believe in. That's their right to discriminate against me, and that's my right to boycott them back.
Okay, Knesset member Simcha Rothman, unfortunately, it's your team that's signaling to us that we need to finish. So okay. With that, I will thank you for your time and offer, of course, to connect any journalist who might have follow-up connections directly to your team.
By all means. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also thank you to my colleague, Eli Klutzstein, for facilitating this very important event. Stay tuned for our next activities at JPC. Have a great day. We hope you enjoyed that briefing by the Jerusalem Press Club. If you did, like the video and hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our future content.